Good afternoon. Today we're considering a 50mm Peter Pig Greek army. This army is a complete army as used this year at Salute, and it's a Greek hoplite army to fight against the Macedonians. Now, the units in this army are basically made of 3 bases per unit. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 10 hoplite units, each one of 3 bases. There's 6 skirmisher units. Skirmisher units are only 2 bases, a bit more delicate. And there's 3 mounted skirmisher units. At the back we've got 3 auxiliary units. And we've also got 2 generals. That's an overall look at the army. So this overall army is for Conquerors and Kings, the ancient rule set, and that gives a full hoplite army, 50mm. Now let's get in close and look at some detail of this army. Now we're going to get in much closer to the army. Here's the hoplite units, central mass of those. There's the generals. These 3 are auxiliaries. Over on the flank we've got the infantry skirmishers. On the right flank we've got the cavalry skirmishers. Now in Conquerors and Kings each unit is 3 bases. So here's some hoplites. And there's a 3 base unit. They die by the half base, which needs you mean the army fights in 6 increments. So you lose a half base, another half base, another half base, another half base, etc., etc. When it's down to just 1 base like that, it just disintegrates. The unit's gone. It's no use at all. Now, that means you could, if you had lots of soldiers, use 6 figures to make a whole unit. Here's just 3. You could use just 1 and just record these 6 increments on a 1 to 6 dice. Now, let's talk about these individual hoplites. These are hoplites with the horizontal spear. I always think it looks really nice. The good thing about Conquerors and Kings, you can use any base sizes, but the fact that you use a square base means you can step them so the figures are slightly back from the front edge and don't smash into the opposing figures. These ones are using broom bristle spears. I've done a bit on these before. So they're bristles off brooms, and in 15mm they're quite rigid enough and they're nice and straight. You crimp the end with a pair of pliers, snip it into shape, and then pop them in. So there's the horizontal spears. There's also vertical spears. Vertical spears are very popular with wargamers because they're easy to stack up, they look quite nice, and they're fairly easy to paint as well. Although if you've got a tall box, it might crush the tops of them, but see how we go on those. There's vertical spears. There's also some diagonal spears, and I can't see any of them here. They're probably around somewhere or other. Now the peltas here, these are mainly Thracian with some other bits mixed up. So they've got spears, some romphier, which is a cutting weapon, command, and they look jolly nice. So these are peltas spears. Skirmishers and Conquerors and Kings are generic. So whether they're slingers, javelin men, bowmen, really doesn't matter. The job of a skirmisher is to skirmish. And here are some skirmishers. There's some archers there with their nice sun hats on. There's some javelin men on the left. You can mix them all in. It really doesn't matter at all. So that's a skirmish unit. Skirmish units die by the half base as well. So there's 4 increments of death rather than 6 of a proper unit. So skirmishers are very useful, but they can die a little bit more easily. Here's mounted skirmishers. There we go. Once again, only 2 bases. The good thing in Conquerors and Kings, this is a grid-based game. It's first written in 1998. This is the new edition in 2023. So they update it every 20 years or so. These skirmishing cavalry, Thessalians. Now the other 2 pieces, Conquerors and Kings always has 2 generals. And here are the 2 here. They're on a bigger square base to make it more distinctive. This chap here is General Pythagoras. He's got all the angles. And this chap here is General Sporus. So there they go. Bless them. Now we put a few more figures on General's base. It's the base that matters, not the exact contents on it. Now the basing effect used in all these is my favourite effect, which is a tetrin. It's like a sort of a wall filler. You make it really runny, almost as runny as water, and you put it all over the base and you poke it in with a little cocktail stick in between the legs and that. Then you can sprinkle sand on it. If you sprinkle sand on it, it gives a bit of texture to it. Otherwise, tetrine is quite smooth. And I put lots of little bits of scrub, little tufts of grass. And they're just from the local hobby shops. That's easy too. What I have used on these is quite a lot of metallic paints. Now, having gamed for sort of 50, 60 years, whatever, I do find these modern acrylic metallics are actually surprisingly good. Early on, metallic acrylics weren't that good, but these new ones are super. They're really shiny. I'm most pleased with those. There's the acrylic metallic paints. And the rest of them, as I said, there's a lot of the spears here. These aren't cast on. These are all done with broom bristles. A pair of pliers, crimp the top. And once you crimp the top, you can cut it with a pair of snips. Doesn't take too long. What did take long is putting all these shield transfers. They're lovely transfers, but the only problem I find is you've got to cut around each one as a circle. I rather like the old Airfix kit ones where the transfer's the right shape, first of all. You have to cut round it and then put them on. But they look very nice. I put a bit of gloss varnish on them just to seal it in, make it look good. So obviously this is a War Games piece. It's got to be quite sturdy. The painting on these was what was it doing now? Oh yes, it's a dark brown undercoat. Then dry brush it, which is like a brush with not much paint on it, in a nice tan colour. Then use a bit of inks on it. That's probably about it really. Pick out a little bit of flesh here and there. This army had to all be done in 2 weeks, which was quite a lot of work actually. So from the castings to the finished army, that took 2 weeks. And I was quite pleased with myself on that because there's, I don't know, maybe 150, 160 figures here. Now, the good thing with the Greeks in Conquerors and Kings rules is they're a fairly stable army. They'll hold the ground quite well, they'll advance quite well. They're not superb at anything in particular, but they're fairly reliable. Now, the qualities in Conquerors and Kings, we have things like levies, veterans, elites, trained. These are mainly a trained army. I made them mainly trained because that's what the Conquerors and Kings army book says. But also, if you buy too many veterans and that, you find you've got fewer figures. You just can't cover what you need. Because Conquerors and Kings is based upon what you kill, of course, but also on the land you hold. So if a defender holds a defensive position, holds it well, he'll do very well. If the attacker sits on his own baseline, doesn't bother to move much, then, well, he's not going to win the game. And that's how it works. Anyways, Conquerors and Kings, 50mm Army by Peter Pigg, and this is in June 2024. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.